Okay, thank you again, everyone, so much for being here today. My name is Amy Church. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the volunteer program manager for the Oregon Department of Human Services. And I am also one of the co-chairs for the Governor's State Employees Food Drive. This is our second year hosting as the co-chairs, and I'll let Greg go ahead and introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Greg Ivers, Oregon Department of Human Services. I am the statewide business outreach coordinator for Oregon Department of Human Services and Oregon Health Authority currently. OHA will be getting their own in January. And I am also one of the co-chairs on the state level for Governor's Food Drive. So welcome, everyone. We're excited to have you all here today.
And I'm going to ask our food bank partners that are with us to introduce themselves, and then they'll have an opportunity to speak a little bit more as we go through the presentation. So we'll go ahead and start with Katie or Marissa. We'll start with the Oregon Food Bank, whichever one of you wants to go first.
Thank you. I was going to see if you wanted to. Hi, everyone. My name is Marissa. I'm on the Community Philanthropy Department at Oregon Food Bank. We are excited to be here and to support the food drive again this year.
Thanks, Marissa. Go ahead, Katie.
Did not fully unmute there. Hi, Katie Duffy, she, her pronouns. You might remember me from last year, where I worked closely with Megan Davis, who couldn't be here today. Marissa's taking point this year, but Megan and I are still around to help support.
Thanks so much, Katie. And we'll go to the Marion Polk Food Show. We've had a change in staff there as well. Go ahead, Loki, and introduce yourself. Oh, Loki, we can't hear you.
How's this?
Better.
Can you hear me now? Okay. I was having so many tech issues when I joined the call.
Oh, no.
I'm Loki, they, them pronouns. I am the Community Partnerships Coordinator at Marion Polk Food Share, taking over to help drive this food drive this year. And I'm so excited to be involved and to see everyone, all of you involved as well. It's so awesome.
And we have some partners from YCAP, and we'll have Dan introduce himself, and then Taylor.
Excuse me, Dan Winters. I'm the food bank director for YCAP. We're located in Yamhill County.
Hi, I'm Taylor Down. I'm the marketing and donor relations manager at YCAP.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We'll be fairly casual today because there's only about 28 of us on the call. We are recording. We do have a presentation that has 2 videos in it, and we'll have some time for group discussion as well that Greg will facilitate for us. And then we're happy to answer any questions you might have. So go ahead and just raise your hand, put it in chat, or even just come off mute if you have a question in the moment. So let's make sure I share screen the correct way. How do I, hold on, I've got to make sure I share sound. And it's been a while since I've had to do this. Hold on one second. Share screen. Oh, there it is. There we go. And I assume you're all seeing my screen. If for some reason you're not, please let me know. Oh, sorry about that. There we go. So this is our orientation for the agency coordinators for the state of Oregon's Governor's State Employees Food Drive. As I mentioned earlier, this is Greg and my second year co-chairing the event. We had a great time doing it last year, and we look forward to working with you all for the 2024 food drive. So the kind of our motto for the food drive is that a stronger community, one meal at a time, that food has the power to heal, to connect us, to make us stronger, and that food solves hunger today, by filling plates with nutritious meals. And I don't know about you, but I've been seeing a lot of media posts about the increased need for food throughout the state and the country, and it's not and so there's been a lot of newspaper articles coming out recently, and we can share some. I've saved some of those that we'll share with you as resources as we go through the food drive. Loki, would you like to talk a little bit about the need for food and the work that we do with Marion Polk Food Share?
Yeah, I mean, as Amy mentioned, right now we are experiencing intense need for food in our communities across Oregon and across the nation. In this year, we actually had the highest demand of pantry visits per household that the Food Share has seen in the Food Share's history, so higher than the pandemic highs. So it's really a hard time, and as rent increases keep going up and fuel costs keep going up, and the national cost of living is Oregon cost of living is actually higher than the national average. We've found that with everything that people need to keep up as they have to juggle all their bills, they might come from a one-income household, and it really gets hard to keep up with everything. The first thing that most people tend to cut is food. So food drives like this that maybe re isn't the word, that add more value to the local food drives, the statewide food drives, and give back to the food banks and the pantries that are all across Oregon. It really helps those people find a way to get the resources that they thought that they couldn't reach otherwise. And seeing entire statewide drive to reinvigorate this very necessary thing for most people is fascinating, and it's really a great chance for everyone to make a difference.
Thank you, Loki. That was well said. And next we'll share a quick video from the Oregon Food Bank. And if you can't hear, let me know.
Oregon Food Bank is unique in the food banking network because of our mission. We're working on the root causes of hunger so that we are not just about getting people food today, but we're about putting ourselves out of business and creating a world in which hunger never happens. We are organized as a network that has existed for 40 years now, very collaborative, very local, very dispersed power, and lots of local leadership. So it's important to understand our structure. At the top, we have the more than 1 million people are asking for food assistance. They're served by 1,400 food assistance sites. And the vast majority of those food assistance sites are all volunteer run. So there are tens of thousands of volunteers who are helping directly distribute food out to folks. The food assistance sites are served by 21 regional food banks, so a warehouse that serves a couple counties. Oregon Food Bank runs 4 of the 21 regional food banks. Those 4 warehouses are located in Beaverton, Tillamook, the Dalles, and Ontario.
My name is Sheila Hyatt. I am the branch services manager here at Oregon Food Bank Southeast Oregon Services in Ontario, Oregon.
I'm Sharon Thornberry, and I'm the manager of Columbia Gorge Food Bank.
I'm Miss Carlson Swanson. I'm with Oregon Food Bank Tillamook County Services, and I'm the branch services manager. Being part of a statewide network is amazing. It allows us to work together to have more power in food acquisition. And through advocacy, we come together once, if not more, a year to go to Salem, to the Capitol, and talk about issues, either root causes of hunger or funds for serving food insecure individuals. We work together to have a slate of issues that we work to advocate for throughout the year.
So even though that we are approximately 360 miles plus from Portland, we still have the support that we need. Being a part of the Oregon Food Bank network, we have a greater support system and are more able to respond effectively and efficiently.
Since COVID started, we've gained a lot more support because people understand the importance of having supplemental food, and so many more people have needed our assistance, and people have responded to support that.
One of the things that has struck me about the response during the pandemic is how critical it is to be leaderful, to have leaders at every level of a network. We have been successful at meeting the incredibly heightened need for food assistance during this pandemic because each individual food assistance site, 1,400 of them, made decisions to stay open and to serve their community through public health. And 21 regional food banks made those decisions, and Oregon Food Bank made those decisions, and our donors made those decisions. And so we are all working individually, but collectively towards the goal of keeping the food flowing. Oregon Food Bank's mission is to eliminate hunger and its root causes. Some people interpret root causes to mean poverty, but I would argue that poverty itself has a root cause, and it is systemic inequities. When we look through the history of our country, we see that there are people in poverty are people of color. They are trans folks, they are immigrants, they are women with small children and single moms. That we have designed systems that don't work well for our communities of color and other marginalized communities. These are systemic inequities. And we can't solve hunger unless we also solve those inequities. So we have to work on living wages. We have to work on access to healthcare. We have to work on racial justice, because all of these things lead to the conditions that sustain and perpetuate poverty.
I really appreciate that video and the connections that it makes. Oh my goodness, why isn't I? Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. We're now are going to hear from one of our regional food banks, the Yamhill County Action Partnership. Dan and Taylor, would you like to share a little bit about what the food drive means to the regional food banks and the impact it makes for your organization?
Sure. So, yeah, obviously we're in the same boat as a lot of other food banks, hit especially hard this year due to, numerous factors, anywhere from, food prices. If you go into your store, this is something that we're all seeing, right? So the people we serve, we readily identify with the causes because we're feeling the impact as well. Food banking used to be supplemental. It used to be, every other week or once a month. It's not that way anymore. It's really our food banks are operating every week, and folks are really relying on, when it comes time to pay rent or do things like that, supplemental doesn't cut it for a lot of these folks. And this is really, we're seeing an increase because people really rely on that food to feed their family. Like right now, we're not seeing the staples that we used to at the back door going into our warehouse. Rice is scarce, beans, we don't have that much of, peanut butter, oats, those types of things that, when people think of food banks, they just think of pallets of these types of things. It's really no longer the case. When we receive dry goods in a back door, it's layers instead of pallets, right? And so here at YCAP, we're distributing to over 30 partner pantries and meal sites throughout our county. And so, if you get 20 cases of beans in, so you could see, and that's where food drives like this are just essential. It really fills a void that needs to be filled. It really supplements kind of all those staples that we really need, and to help kind of fill that gap.
Thank you, Dan. Taylor, is there anything you'd add or?
I think Dan pretty much covered it,
Okay.
but yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So what do you need to know as the agency coordinator? We're here to support you throughout the food bank, or throughout the food drive, I mean. One of your primary resources is going to be the coordinator handbook. And we are in the process of doing a few updates Greg and I we're bringing on a volunteer. Greg and I have been finding ourselves more busy this time of year, and it's harder to get to the food drive thing. So as a volunteer program manager, why not engage a volunteer in helping with some of this work? So we have a volunteer named Juan who will be starting next week to help us with updating the materials and communicating with the other state agencies and gathering the rest of the agency coordinators. And so we're really excited to have him join us and partner with us in this work while also gaining some employable skills. So the Coordinator's Handbook has a table of contents that cover these things: how to utilize site coordinators, agency coordinator checklist, some FAQs, fundraising activities and ideas, tips on how to increase participation in payroll deductions, the governor's challenge, receipting information and what funds will be collected, and then some hunger facts from the food bank and some information on the regional food banks. So all of those resources will be within the handbook, and we're updating that. And I will put the link for the food drive is in the chat now. It's just oregon.gov/food drive, and that'll take you to our website. And all of the resources from 2023 are on there. As I mentioned, we're working on getting them updated and ready for 2024. But most of the information is remaining the same. It's just updating a little bit, like the governor's challenge has been $12 a year. $12 a month. So $144 a year for a very, very, very long time. And we had a meeting of kind of a steering committee for a planning committee for the food drive. And we decided at that meeting that we were going to increase the governor's challenge to $15 this year. And hopefully more folks will come up to meet that challenge. Let's see. So this is what the webpage looks like. Again, it's just oregon.gov/food drive, and there's different things to get. There's information on how to get involved. There's the coordinator information, and then some additional historical information. This is from 2021, so it might be a little bit different, but most of the information should still be the same. So here's what kinds of funds you're going to be collecting and what to do with them. So if you hold an event or a silent auction or some kind of activity, you might receive checks. People could make a check payable to the regional food bank. They could make donations directly to the regional food banks on their websites. They could collect cash, and then there's also payroll deductions. And so with cash and checks would be delivered directly to your regional food bank. Cash from fundraising activities in Marion County or in the Salem area, we have an account set up with Heritage Grove Credit Union, which is just over here on Winter Street near downtown Salem. And if you collect cash for your events that you do with in this area, you could take the cash to Heritage Grove, deposit it in your agency sub account, and then your agency would get credit for it. And at the end of the fundraiser, the cash goes directly, the money goes directly to Marion Polk Food Share. With the payroll deductions, all payroll deductions are made in Workday with the exception of the universities. There's a form for the universities to use when making payroll deductions, and that will be available on the website as well. Thanks, Greg, for adding additional information in the chat.
I'm just typing what you're saying, some of what you're saying, just so
perfect.
It's
Thank you. And so payroll deduction again will be made through Workday. There's we're making a couple of changes to the survey specifically regarding around the governor's challenge, changing the amount for that. And so we'll be meeting with the Workday team next week to make those changes. I did find out from Workday that if you can make multiple contributions within Workday for payroll deductions. So if you participate in an event and it's $5 for the event, you can make a $5 one-time donation through your Workday request. And then let's say you also wanted to do a monthly contribution, then you could set up a second Workday request for that monthly contribution or for other activities that you participate in. And then the anything that comes in as a payroll deduction automatically gets reported to Greg and I through Workday reports. And with the exception again of the universities, they would have to share their payroll deductions that they receive with us so that we can make sure they get credit for those. The agency coordinator is responsible for tracking the donations. You may also choose to utilize site coordinators if you have a larger agency or organization that you're working with. It's often nice to have site coordinators. And what they do is they manage the food drive on the local level. They pass their reporting of their funds raised up to the agency coordinator. The agency coordinator would then report those donations to Greg and I. And we have a form for that as well. And again, those would be for any contributions that are made outside of the payroll deductions. It gets a little confusing. We do also have a new, oh, there's another. This question may arise in my agency. Department of Revenue, are donations to this tax deductible? Ryan, I'm going to get back to you on that. I can't remember the answer to that question off the top of my head. And I know we answered that question last year. I just don't remember off the top of my head. So I will get back to you on that. We do also have an opportunity for a new team fundraising opportunity through Marion Polk Food Share. So if your agency or organization is primarily based in Marion or Polk counties, you could choose to go on to Marion Polk Food Share's website and create your own fundraising team. And so we're going to just watch a quick little video on how to do that. And then if you have questions, Loki is our technical expert on that, and they will be very happy to answer any questions that you may have.
On stateemployees.fundraise.org, first click on Fundraise, then Create Team. From here you'll be entering your first and last name, your email, a good phone number to reach you at, and finally a password that you'll make to access your account. Here you will enter a bit of information about yourself, such as your address, gender, and date of birth. Finally, you'll enter which state agency you belong to. Please don't use any acronyms.
Oh, sorry.
The next step is create your page. This is where you can put a profile image of yourself, a page title for your own personal fundraising page, and your own personal fundraising goal. You're going to want to copy the appeal story to your clipboard for the next step. This final step, create your team page, is where you can create a similar page for your team, adding a profile picture for your team, name for your team, and page title, fundraising goal, and the appeal story that you copied from the previous page. Let's start fundraising.
Oh. There we go. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Katie, for answering those questions in the chat. And Marissa, Katie answered, and then Marissa also sent me a private message. And so donations should be tax deductible unless there are any restrictions through the payroll deduction. So that's something we can look into a little bit more, but there's a little bit of an answer there for you. These are the regional food banks that we partnered with last year. We encourage you to connect with your regional food bank while you're managing your food drive. They can come in and provide presentations to your staff or participate in events. And if you are interested in doing a physical food donation in addition to monetary fundraising, your local regional food bank will be the one to tell you whether they're accepting physical food donations at that time or not. And they would provide you with the mechanism to do so, whether it's bringing a barrel in or you collect it in a basket and then connect with the regional food bank to transfer the food to them. And then we'll be making sure that these donation URLs are up to date, and we'll update the list that's on the Food Drive website. So now, so there is a Workday job aid for the food drive and for doing this payroll deductions, and we'll be updating those after our meeting next week and uploading those again to the website. So some fundraising ideas and information for you as the coordinator. You can use Hunger Facts in staff communications to show the extreme need for monetary donations. You could share some of the articles that have recently come out with your staff and your colleagues and families and friends and community. You can also share videos that we have on the Food Drive website, or if you find something on the Oregon Food Bank or your regional food bank's website, feel free to use that. You can also gather tangible donations from businesses to use as prizes, donor incentives, or in a silent auction. These donations from businesses are not tax deductible because the donations are not going directly to the food bank. You could also ask for gift cards from businesses, or and make sure if there's any pandemic related restrictions, make sure you follow those. Most of those have been lifted at this time. You can also gather donations from agency employees to use as prizes, incentives, or silent auction. Notice that we're saying prizes, incentives, or silent auction and not raffles. Raffles are a little bit tricky and have their own rules, and you would need to connect with the gaming commissioner if you choose to do a raffle. There's a dollar limit amount on how much can be raised by agency on a raffle. So if you're a large agency with lots of sites and each site does, their own raffle, you might exceed that limit and could get in trouble with the DOJ. So just a cautionary warning about doing raffles. And then you can also do fundraising events that are socially distanced or virtual to include your staff that may not be at your primary work sites. If you have staff that are working remotely, virtual and socially distanced activities might be best for them. So now it's your turn to kind of share what you've done in the past, ask some questions, and I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to mute myself so Greg can take over facilitation.
Oh, there's a hand up, Cami.
Yes, hi, thank you for hosting this. I had a question. I've already been in contact with our Food for Lane County rep, and she shared with me that Food for Lane County inflation kind of finally caught up with them, and they have recalculated sort of the buying power of $1 into 2 meals instead of 3 meals. So I was curious about how the state was going to kind of record dollars to meal conversion. And if it is not, if it's kind of stayed the same as in past years, if we have any language about why it stayed the same, because that question keeps coming up again and again from folks being like, the cost of living has increased. Why is this still the same? So thank you.
I think we'll look to our Oregon Food Bank or Marion Polk Food Share partners to answer that question.
I will say on behalf of Oregon Food Bank, we still use the $1 equals 3 meals. And part of that is our purchasing power. So even though everything is rising, we're able to purchase at that larger scale, which is typically more at cost, which is why the number has kind of remained the same. I will check in with our, trying to think what team would be best. Either our communications team or our partnerships team and double check and make sure that nothing has changed. But as far as my understanding, we still use the $1 for 3 meals. And Katie, jump in if there's anything I'm missing from the OFB side.
No, you've covered it. I think I want to say that number may actually come from Feeding America. So it may be a broader, more national number. At the very least, it's a broader, more statewide number for Oregon Food Bank versus Eugene, which is where I grew up, Cami. So yes, we'll follow up on that, make sure that is still the updated number, but I believe it is statewide.
Great. All right, thank you. So we did just be kind of moving on. Are there any other questions before we move on? I want to make sure we save some space for everybody if they have any other questions. Okay, I will be asking, I'm asking SNAP policy at ODHS for a fast fact sheet for SNAP. The benefit amounts, that kind of thing, eligibility. This is really useful to share when you're doing activities locally in an office for like a local coordinator, especially. They can say, it kind of gives some context, right, about people living in poverty. There are a lot of myths out there, unfortunately, and I do a lot of trade shows and conferences. I'm a marketer and connector for lots of different things. And when I talk about employer incentive programs, I talk about TANF and SNAP with the business community. And I hear comments like, oh, well, those people have bigger houses than we do, and they drive really fancy cars, and they're buying steak at the grocery store, with their food stamps, the former name, that kind of thing. And that's not really true, So an average TANF grant for a family of 3 is around $500. That doesn't include having your rent paid or utilities paid or anything like that. And an average SNAP benefit that comes with that might be another $1,000 for food for a family of 3, if even that. So, I pose the question, if you had $1,500 in food benefits and in cash, could you live as a family of 3? Rents are pretty high, right? If you just look at that. So the reason I'm telling you this is not to go down a rabbit hole, but because it helps to give context. And people are like, oh, well, they've got, all those people probably have SNAP anyway. Well, it's not a lot of money, right? To cover. And most people receiving SNAP benefits are what we call the working poor, for lack of a better phrase. Most, 60% or better of them actually have full-time jobs. They're making minimum wage though, right? And if you have a family, that's really, really hard, especially if you're a single parent with a single income. And so I'll share that fast facts sheet. We'll get that out to you when I get that from SNAP policy, because that can be helpful, right? So people go, oh my goodness, right? The people really are hungry. We really do have a food desert, right? You know, all over the state. So we'll get that out. So that can be something that can help motivate people to participate in the activities you're going to be doing locally. And the last slide we saw did have some examples. So what I kind of wanted to do was brainstorm with you all, and you can use the chat or you can unmute, either way you want to do. You can raise your hand, we can call on you. This is very casual, like Amy said, right? So, you know, we're okay with the loose structure today. So if you have participated in the governor's food drive in previous years, whether as a coordinator or just as someone working, right, you know, who maybe participated in some activities, what are some things you saw that were effective, right? So I'm not asking for things that nobody wanted to do. What are some things that you saw that were effective? There are things I want to give a little warning. There are things we can't do, right? You know, so years and years ago, I worked for the employment department a long time ago. And back in the very early aughts, one of our fundraising activities we had was a dunk tank. You can't do that anymore, okay? It was the manager sat in the dunk tank, and for certain donations, you got to throw a ball, the lever, the paddle, and then, you know, if he fell in the water, everybody cheered, that kind of thing, right? So can't do those kinds of things anymore. You can't, no gambling, you know, there's limits on that, you know, that kind of thing. So we'll get some guidance out, and that's also in the handbook. So if you have a suggestion from a staff member or a manager or anyone at your agency for an activity that seems a little iffy to you, a little bit of gray area, like I'm not really sure, let us call that shot. You know, reach out to us, because if we're wrong, we'll get in trouble, not you. Okay, so you're covered. You go, hey, Amy and Greg said this was fine. Nothing's going to happen to you, right? We're the ones that are going to get a talking to. So anyway, we just want to make sure that you don't choose some activities that are a little bit maybe risky, that kind of thing, right? Risk of injury with the dunk tank, you know, that kind of thing, or violating, you know, gambling laws, right? You know, in office, state office buildings. So all of that. There are other things you can do though, right? So I'll give some examples really quick, just to kind of get us started here. So one thing that we did when I worked in the field was we did a book drive. So we asked people to bring in books from home they didn't want anymore. I'm an avid reader. I have piles of books that I have already read that I will probably never read again, right? Some I keep, because I might, but I end up just donating those, like to St. Vincent de Paul generally. We have a really big one in Albany. I live in Albany. And so I do that. But for a food drive, you could have people bring in books, right? And, you know, maybe, I don't know, whatever you want to do, $2 for hardbound, $1 for soft paperback, whatever your local people want to do. But we found that raised a lot of money. What didn't work really well was a silent auction for stuff people brought in, just general merchandise. Because what happened is you have to really heavily police that, like no old shoes, you know, for example, that kind of thing. What happens is people bring a lot of junk, unfortunately. So if you want to be police that regularly, I was the local coordinator, you know, for my office back then, and it was a lot of work for me 3 or 4 times a day to go and see what's might have materialized on the table, right, and to get rid of that. But other things, luncheons are super popular. One thing that we did years ago was we would do a luncheon. It was potluck. People brought in their food, but then people had to pay. And even if you donated food, you still paid. It was like $5, I think, you know, to all you can eat for the luncheon. That raised a lot of money for us. So those are just some examples of some activities. And so I was wondering if anybody has any suggestions of things they've seen that have worked in the past, or anything maybe you're thinking about doing that would be new, you've never done before, but hey, what about this, right? And then we welcome feedback from the people, okay? No calling anybody out, right? We're gonna be nice, and we're gonna be polite, we're gonna be friendly, right? So, you know, in a very kind way, if you see an issue with something, go ahead and say, have you thought about this? You know, right? All right. Any ideas?
To tag on to your luncheon idea, we do something here at the university, and it's specifically in my building, so I'm aware of it as opposed to something elsewhere. But it is a bake off. So instead of like a bake sale, yeah, people bring in baked goods. And so it's sort of a competition where it's like blind, but you pay to like, you know, taste all of these delicious desserts. So it has like a little bit of a competition flair to it, because obviously people want to have their baked goods be reign supreme. It's also a little fun that there's multiple departments in our building who have separate sort of departmental teams. So the winning, how we do it is that the winning kind of dessert proceeds, first, second, third, sort of go to their respective teams. Yeah, so that one's really fun.
Yeah.
It brings people together. And another one that happened last year that someone coordinated was outreach to a local business. It was a local scoop shop, and they got the ice cream shop to kind of donate a percentage of their sales for one day. And that was really great. Even though it's February, people still like ice cream.
I think I know I do. I eat ice cream all winter. So it's like my major vice, right, is ice cream. So anyway, and I think that's a pretty good vice to have. You're going to have one. But anyway, yeah, that's a really, really good idea. I really like that. And sometimes, like if you do have outreach people for your agency or for your university, sometimes they're in touch with business community nonprofits, and they can get donations of things, right, that can be bid on, you know, for example. Or I do like the percentage of sales idea. I think that's a really cool idea. One thing also that we did, and again, my personal experience from a long time ago. So our area for the employment department I worked in was Albany, Corvallis, and Lebanon. And so we created a competition. So is what we did. So the managers bought a gift certificate. But it was only a gift certificate. I'm remembering wrong. I just remember now. The managers said they would get together and they would buy pizza and refreshments for the office that raised the most money. And they could have a pizza party on working time, not over lunchtime. They said they would have a working, you know, party for that office. And so that created that competitive spirit, a healthy, nice competitive spirit. And so the offices were like constantly comparing notes about who raised them and asking me, are we ahead? How far are we behind? How much money do we need to raise to catch up? That kind of thing. And that can help too, kind of, you know, doing competition. Amy, I'm sorry, maybe I was talking over you.
Not at all. I just wanted to also share that if you want your contributions for your agency to go to the Marion Polk Food Share, using that fundraising site to set up your team for competitions is a really good way to do that. I think about like DEQ. I don't know if they're on the call today or not, but last year they had like their green lab team versus their yellow lab team. And unfortunately, when the email address that they gave to their employees to use when they were submitting their contributions was wrong. And so the team wasn't getting the correct receipt. They weren't getting any of the receipts. And so it was really hard for the team coordinator to track without having to go back and say, send me a copy of your receipt or something. And so using that team fundraising site, you could set up a team just for the green lab team and the yellow lab team. And then the coordinator for that team would get the report of the donations and would be able to submit that to us to count toward your agency contributions. And it's another great way to encourage that kind of competitive nature between units. There was also a question in the chat from Joshua from SOU, and Cami said it was a great question. So I wanted to just pose this to our food bank reps. That at SOU, they primarily use their donations to support the university's food pantry. Is that okay? And is there anything they need to do differently to track that, or should they be connecting with their regional food bank? Or does it matter?
I would say there's no issue with it. I would say just keep in touch with your regional food bank as well as the partner agency and just double check everything and let them know. And then just be clear as you're collecting donations that it's going to the partner agency as opposed to the regional food bank. But if it's something you've done historically, then I assume it's okay.
Yeah, and we had, I think, one of our ODHS offices in like Oregon City. I think they gave their contributions that they raised directly to their local food pantry rather than to the regional food banks. So Guthrie, you have your hand up?
Yeah, one idea I had sparked by something we did for a food drive when I was back in elementary school we called it a penny war. And basically each class had jars and they would add as many pennies as they could. And then other people would try to reduce that amount by adding different change. And then you would just have a tally. The purchasing power may have been reduced quite a bit of spare change since I was in elementary school. But across especially a large employee agency, you could add up to a lot and some backbreaking work for the coordinators to schlep it all to the bank. But that was just one idea I had. And then is there a link to that fundraising site somewhere? I just tried typing it in and I got a dead end, but I may have had a typo.
I'll let Loki put that in the chat for us, maybe. And oh, Greg doesn't know what cornhole is. It's that game with the two slanted boards and you throw the bean bags to try to get it in the hole.
Got it.
Like a bean bag
Thank you.
toss.
Okay, got it. I will add that then, so now that I know what it is.
And Laura said they had a cornhole tournament to raise money for the charitable fund drive, and the winner was lunch with the executive director. I think that's great. And then Laura mentioned they do a chili cook-off and you pay to eat. And they also do a beaver duck competition and some other ideas. That's great. Great teamwork and using colored balloons, buying colored balloons to do that. I think that's really a lot of fun. And AKA bag. Oh, bean bags, depending on your regional slang. Yeah. Joshua, you have your hand up.
I just wanted to mention what we do at the university, at Southern Oregon University. Since we have a lot of buildings in our agency, we do this building competition where we give each building a donation barrel, and we ask the staff to have a competition against each other to see who can donate the most poundage of food, and it always works pretty well. The staff sometimes get very competitive and try to out compete with different buildings.
I think that's good. Great, thank you. I captured that. That's great. So we're hearing a lot of really creative ideas. Yeah, some really, really good things there. I did think of something, for example, like I mentioned, gray area, for example, like we can't do the dunk tank. So another activity we did years ago, after that we learned the dunk tank was banned. We weren't allowed to do that the following years. Our agency coordinator found that out. What we did the following year was we had a coworker who had a small farm that she lived on, and she had baby pigs. And so the manager said that if we raised a certain dollar amount, that he would kiss the pig, and that we could all have a picture of it. He would pay for have multiple copies of the picture made. That's not dangerous, but because a piglet is a little baby pig. But that's something that would be a gray area that you would want to run by us, probably just to make 100% sure. So. It was really fun. We made a whole bunch of money that year. We all gathered around and watched him kiss the pig, and we all got a picture. I probably still have it somewhere, so it was fun. Let's see, any other ideas, activities? I've got quite a few written down here.
Lori has her hand up.
So since the pandemic, we actually do a raffle / sale, and what it is we have staff members who. We have one of our managers who actually makes quilts, hand makes quilts.
Oh.
And so she puts one up for raffle. And we have to go through the process of getting the approval and everything, but people donate, and then we have a certain amount of, for $10, you can get 5 tickets or whatever. And they have to give me the receipt of how much they did and say how many tickets they want. We started having staff members start donating other things that says, okay, well, I'll have, like, somebody makes handmade soaps. So they'll donate like
Okay.
12. So it's like somebody
Yeah.
could buy a handmade soap in addition to buying raffle tickets. And last year we had actually someone's wife who makes jewelry put up a necklace as well. So we had 2 things that we raffled off. We had someone who roasts their own coffee beans. So they put so many things up so people could buy those with their donations and stuff. And like I said, we go through the whole, I have to put up a flyer and everything, get that approved and everything else before it goes out. But we have a lot of fun with that one.
That's very cool. Thank you. Guthrie, looks like we overlooked you. I'm so sorry. I apologize. Would you like to talk?
No, you didn't overlook me. I'm double dipping. I already went, but
Okay.
this isn't so much an activity, but just an idea I had of putting up like a mural or somewhere for people to sign their names or put their handprints if they've just done the payroll deduction, and just have that somewhere.
That's a good idea.
Voluntarily in the entryway as a passive way to just remind people and make them want to contribute.
I think that's kind of nice. It's almost like, paying to have, a brick, like in a building, it's like people sponsor, a build like on a university campus or something like that. It's kind of what comes to mind. I like that idea. Very nice. Okay, so I'm recording that. Any other ideas? And this is not your last chance, by the way, okay? You can always email Amy or me or Amy and me or anybody at the and let us know, hey, I came up with this idea, that idea. And if you have great ideas, I understand that maybe you don't want to share that here, right? And that's okay. You can always send those directly to us, and Amy and I can staff those and then get back to you and go, that sounds great, or no, that's not a good idea, or you know what, you can do that, but I'll do it this way.
And I wanted to throw a couple of other ideas out. Oregon Corrections Enterprises does, I think it's an auction each year of the wood items that adults in custody make through the Oregon's Corrections Enterprises, and they're beautiful wood cutting boards and serving trays and bowls and all of that. And I'm not sure, I can't remember what auction site they use for doing that, but that might be another way to engage our remote workers in kind of a silent auction, and really think about those, our colleagues that are working from home that we're not seeing on a daily basis. And that's one way to engage with them. And so I'm going to reach out to their coordinator to get a little more information about what site they use, so we can share that with you all as well.
Thank you, Amy.
Any other questions or thoughts or ideas? I think we're going to try to schedule another kind of meeting with all of the coordinators around, I think Greg is out the first week of January, so probably early in that second week of January, so that we can recap, answer any additional questions, make sure you have access to all of the information and resources you need. And so stay tuned for that. And we're happy to, again, answer any questions you might have.
All right.
Thanks, everyone. Oh, I love the $5 Valentine grams.
That's
yes.
a good idea. I'm
It's a
gonna
great
write that
idea.
one down.
I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.
Okay.